Man, this is still probably one of my most favorite scenes I've done here. Hey, what's up? My name is Ian Degner, and I'm a senior director of photography over at RealArc. Today, we're looking at lighting a scene. Now, Aaron Allen is our actor in this scene who plays a prison inmate alongside co-star Vanessa, who plays some sort of a counselor in the situation to kind of get an idea of where Aaron is in his prison life. Now, what I loved about these opening shots is this was kind of like a bonus. We don't normally get these bonus shots like this, and we'll go into more in detail here in a second, but this was kind of some extra buildup of B-roll in a sense while we were getting ready to shoot Vanessa's coverage here. So sometimes when doing these scenes, the client sometimes has an idea of what they want the visual look of this thing to be, and sometimes you don't. But in this case, Aaron actually sent over an image of what he wanted this to look and feel like, and he actually sent over a still image from the movie The Counselor from 2013. Based on this image Aaron sent over of the counselor here, we knew how he wanted this set up. So we knew we needed a table, 2 chairs, and we kind of went through some things to try to figure it all out. So what we actually came up with was very similar to what you see here. So now based on that screenshot from the counselor, you can actually see what we kind of came up with here. And I think we did a pretty good job at emulating what they had. Now I did take some creative liberties in terms of the color and the look of this thing, but for the most part, we want to make sure that Aaron here was happy with his scene that we were shooting for him. Here in our main opening wide shot, we actually have the table, and you can see we got a little practical here on the table. You can actually see the diagram of how I shot this. Now, this is our space here, and you can see Aaron starts off screen and walks in, and he wants to absorb seeing outside into the world. He doesn't get very much sunlight time, you know, so we thought maybe give himself a little bit of an extra beat as he ends up looking outside for just a moment before he's forced to go back into his cell. From there, he walks over and sits down at his table, and the rest of the scene plays across from each other like this. So again, it is a little bit rare that we get some extra shots at RealArc. We usually do some very standard mediums and close-ups, but in this case, we had some extra time to set up and kind of get something really fleshed out here because we knew we had enough time to get everything that we were going to need. If we go back to the very beginning here, you can see that we have this very normal looking corridor, and we have Aaron and the director Blaze actually walking down this corridor. This was the very last shot that we did in the in this scene. It's just because we had a little bit of extra time. I actually took out my my electric skateboard. I sat the camera right on top of a sandbag, and I just slowly pulled back on it a little bit. And you know, we got a little bonus shot, and it played out great. Now, the color of his jumpsuit here, as well as the background of these numbers, really played into this whole prison environment, and it really catered towards the situation we had. Now, our main opening shot here with Aaron was done pretty simply. We have Aaron standing by a window, and I had 2 sources. One, I had a source specifically over here on the right-hand side in this little section on the right that was just providing these lines of kind of noirish looking light inside of this prison. I wanted to give the wall a little bit of extra life to it, so I ended up having a light just give some nice little slashes on the back wall. Now on top of that, I actually had a 4x4 bounce board right here on the other side of this window here that you can't really see that's behind there. Now I had a secondary source down here angled upwards hitting this bounce board to blast this whole background so it goes to almost pure white, but then B, to also provide a little bit of a key light on our subject here coming through the window. Now, technically, there's 2 key lights in this situation as he walks from one place to another in the same scene. So on top of having our bounce right here with a 300 watt light coming through, hitting the bounce, and another 300 watt light coming through and getting the little pattern on the back wall, we also had a silk up here, and I needed to use every type of source I had at the point because we were doing a wide shot and he had 2 different places. So the actor having 2 locations to be at, and I need a light for both of them, I was kind of running low on our lighting. So I ended up putting a silk right here, and I had to figure out a solution. So what I did is I actually went over here and I added some tube lights. So we have these 2 Nanlite tube lights over here, and I ended up putting 2 of them right next to each other, and that was what is going to be our key light once Aaron sits down. Now, once we do get to a little bit of a close-up here, once we're out of the wide shot, I was able to bring in that silk a little bit closer. So I'm able to kind of bring this in here and take both these tube lights alongside the practical that we had sitting on this this desk right here, and that ended up being our key light. Now, one of the main reasons I didn't just repurpose one of these 300 watt lights back here was because we had to be so close to the wall. The distance between subject and the wall was maybe a couple feet. I needed something as close to the wall as possible, but to also be a situation in which I could get a nice, strong, but soft key light on our talent. Now, one little happy accident is actually this light source from here, this window, was actually coming over here and bouncing off this wall. Now, I didn't have a kicker or any type of edge light on him, but this was giving a natural bounce back and kind of illuminating his edge right here of his temple and his face, which just kind of separated him just a little bit more than just allowing this to go to full, complete darkness. So it was kind of nice that this 300 kind of came in, hit this wall, and kind of just bounced back and wrapped around. Now, on top of that, this bounce board back here was actually providing a nice little edge light going all the way on his shoulders here to even bring him that much further out and separating him from the background. I didn't want him to bleed into the background there, so it was another kind of happy accident that this soft source was providing enough to give him a little bit of an edge on his shoulders. Now, once we flip around to Vanessa's side of things, we just simply reversed everything, except with this, we ended up adding a little 150 watt light somewhere about here. And that was just giving her some nice illumination on her side as she was sitting there. So it gave her a nice little kicker, as well as a little bit of a hair light to make her pop a little bit more. And then we ended up just repurposing our silk setup on the other side. So when we flipped the coverage, I simply took our silk, rotated it around, put it on this side of thing, as well as our tube lights here. And now this light is going through the silk and providing Vanessa with a little bit of a Rembrandt, as well as getting that little hair light from behind here. So, you know, I probably had this maybe on a C-stand just off to the side of camera here, just to give her a little bit of an edge. I don't think we went too toppy with it and just kind of kept it simple. So one thing to keep in mind is just when you're doing these scenes, just think of everything in the most simplest form. You want your subject to stand out, and you want to just make sure that there's a little bit of life to the background. Now, this is a very different situation here as we're in a prison cell, so it makes sense to not have a ton of stuff in the background, but it looks pleasing to the eye to just have a wash of this kind of bluish cement wall. It makes it feel cold and stark, and that was the vibe I was kind of going for, on top of the little bit of a green fluorescent light as our practical light on the table. So when it comes to exposing this, I'm actually exposing to the right. Now, if you don't know what this means, what essentially I'm doing is overexposing the footage here so that in post-production, we could bring it back down and save some of the highlights as well as the shadows so they don't get too noisy and grainy. All I'm doing is just allowing 2 extra stops darker on this LUT so that I am forced to bring up my intensity of all my fixtures to then give me a nice clean image. Now, with that said, we are exposing at 800 ISO on a Sony FX9, as well as using some Rokinon Cine lenses. Now, these lenses are not the top of the line, but they do a great job and they look great here.
But he lied to you.
I cleaned that house.
I mean, that's pretty much it. All we're doing here is doing a simple 3 or 4 light situation in terms of getting this look. Again, the 2 fixtures outside the window there. You got the tube light right behind the silk, just off to the right side of camera here, bringing it in somewhat close so that light really evenly spreads around his face, as well as on Vanessa's face here when we do flip around for her coverage. Now, typically in these scenes, we always do 2 medium shots, as well as 2 extreme close-ups or close-ups, depending on the given situation or scenario. So in this situation, we did some pretty tight mediums and then some pretty extreme close-ups here, almost getting down to cutting into both top and bottom of the head. Now, I think this was a great look, and I loved how much Aaron overpowered Vanessa here with his stature, which really made her feel small in the frame, but you really got a sense of his feeling and him just bringing to life this character that really just made the whole overall experience that much more fun. Really happy with how this scene turned out. We did this within 2 hours. So by the time the actor walks in with their script and what they want, I'm there already hopefully set up with in terms of my lighting and camera placement, so we can just get them in on set, start rolling, get the scene done, and get them out. 2 hours is not a lot of time to shoot an entire scene, not to mention getting all the coverage we did here, but when things just flow really nicely together, you get lucky. And that's what we did here, and we got a very beautiful scene out of it. So shout out to the director Blaise Mancias, as well as these 2 actors, Aaron and Vanessa. Overall, everything came together, and with the help of our crew as well, this was just a fantastic piece to show off, and I'm very proud of it. We'll see you next time with more lighting breakdowns in the future. All right, take care.